This file is classified above Level 4 clearance. This deadly anomaly has already claimed more than 783 lives. Unlike any other SCP, this well demands terrifying ritual sacrifices. Failure unleashes a reality-bending catastrophe of anomalous world-ending power. Leaked footage reveals what happened when the Foundation failed containment. Stay until the end to uncover the redacted truth of Site-93. The instinct for survival is our most fundamental drive. We prioritize it above almost everything else. To willingly sacrifice oneself is profoundly heroic. But what if you were compelled to do it? Called upon again and again to risk everything. Brave individuals occasionally put their lives on the line. Our D-class personnel do so with chilling frequency. Today we examine an anomaly that demands this sacrifice. And the consequences for refusal are nothing short of catastrophic. Before delving into SCP-7776, understand its containment protocol. We have an archived, obsolete set of procedures. These old rules now serve as a historical warning. Knowledge was restricted to no more than 200. Most were stationed at a remote, isolated facility, Site-93. It was established as a permanent quarantine zone. Personnel attempting to leave were detained and interrogated. Unauthorized dissemination of information was punishable by execution. It sounds less like a research facility, more a prison. The new current containment procedures paint an even starker picture. Site-93 now operates with absolute minimal oversight. All containment activities are to be carried out exclusively by a rotating roster of 3 Level 4 personnel. The site is a complete media black hole, with all staff prohibited from any unregulated recording of images or video. The airspace above is a no-fly zone, enforced by a battery of automated anti-air weapon systems and listening outposts. All Foundation documentation concerning Site-93 has been deliberately falsified, vaguely describing it as containing a minor cognito hazard. Knowledge of SCP-7776's true nature is to be confined to the absolute smallest number of personnel necessary. Should any individual outside the confines of Site-93 gain this knowledge, they are to be immediately terminated, and a full-scale investigation into the information breach is to be launched. Site-93 itself is built around and integrated with a pre-existing village, which operates autonomously but in direct partnership with the Foundation to manage the anomaly. The use of anomalous technology and thaumaturgical practices by the personnel stationed there is not only permitted but encouraged for containment purposes. A total of 8 Scranton reality anchors have been deployed in a perimeter around Site-93 to stabilize the local environment. All residents of the village, alongside Foundation staff, receive specialized training to assist in the containment of 700 and 776, effectively granting them a unique form of clearance. In a chilling agreement, the village population has consented to a complete prohibition on bearing any more children. Any unauthorized individual who enters the quarantine zone is to be detained and interrogated to determine their level of exposure. If they are found to have been influenced, they will be forcibly integrated. Every staff member and affected villager must attend a daily morning assembly. The purpose of this assembly is to allow for the reception of what are described as visions. Anyone who receives a vision must describe it in precise, accurate detail before witnesses. If the received vision outlines a ritual, the receiver is permitted to take up to 24 hours to prepare. If no ritual is performed before the next day's assembly, the critical date a new ritual must be assigned. Failure to participate is severely punished, while incentive programs encourage compliance. Once again, we are presented with an outdated description, a relic of the Foundation's initial flawed understanding. It posited that SCP-7776 was a mimetic agent, an idea that propagated through a complex chain of deductive reasoning and associative logic. The description claimed that a subject's investigation would invariably lead them to a single conclusion, a specific groundwater well, which they would come to believe contained a powerful malevolent entity or force. This well is located in a remote village in the Carpathian Mountains. The anomaly's primary effects were believed to be purely psychological and cognito-hazardous, triggered simply by referencing the well's appearance, location, or nature. Individuals affected would feel a compulsive need to engage in ritualistic behavior centered around the well, in a desperate attempt to appease the entity within. This old theory, however, has been superseded by a much more terrifying reality. The current description clarifies that SCP-7776 is in fact the groundwater well itself. It's a stone-lined shaft approximately 1.8 meters in diameter, built with techniques historically common to its region in Eastern Europe. The well is the epicenter of a host of anomalous effects, the most immediate of which is a powerful perception-altering cognitohazard. These effects are persistent at the site, propagating through direct observation, secondhand descriptions, or even just a general familiarity with the well. Afflicted individuals uniformly develop a specific, unshakable belief that a gateway or a window exists at the bottom of the well. Through this portal they perceive a separate reality, a bubble that houses an undefined but profoundly hostile force. They report gaining an intuitive non-verbal understanding of this entity's apparent intentions. These descriptions universally characterize the entity's intent as an apocalyptic drive to enter, expand, and consume, driven by an immense cruelty and an almost infinite capacity to inflict harm upon all life. Periodically, one or more individuals affected by the anomaly will experience a powerful intrusive hallucination, informing them of a specific set of ritual behaviors. These hallucinations are described as vivid visions, often accompanied by physical sensations of pain or pressure in the subject's eyes and teeth. The rituals themselves are invariably dangerous, self-harming, or potentially lethal, as well as being nonsensical and grotesque. Amnestics can wipe an individual's conscious memory of the well and the visions, but they fail to stop the visions from occurring. The compulsion returns, transmitted through the intrusive mental image of the well itself. If a vision is received, the afflicted individuals feel a profound, crushing urgency to perform the prescribed ritual. They believe this is the only way to prevent the entity from breaking through the gateway and entering our reality. The ritual must be performed within a 24-hour period. Failure to do so does not stop the visions, in fact, it makes them worse. The individual will be bombarded with additional visions in the following days, each more intense and disturbing than the last, leading to rapid mental degradation and eventually complete psychosis. The consequences of failure aren't just psychological. The well's secondary effects on local reality are directly tied to the successful and timely completion of these rituals. If they are not carried out, reality itself begins to fray. The scale of a ritual can vary wildly. The failure of a given ritual is catastrophic. The well's reactions do not correspond to any known laws of physics or causality. Failures universally expand the well's sphere of influence and intensify its reality-bending effects. The ambient effects of the well, even when it's being appeased, are profound. The structure of the well itself is physically indestructible. Liquids that pass into the well are transmuted into a corrosive, black, viscous fluid, which has paradoxically been shown to be able to sustain biological functions. Weather patterns within a 17-kilometer radius of the site are completely divorced from regional norms, with multiple localized microclimates existing year-round. Native wildlife passively avoids a 10-kilometer zone around the well. Migratory animals will still pass through the area, but their flight patterns become erratic. Humans residing within the area of effect for extended periods may undergo subtle physical changes. Straight hair might become curly. Fingernails and toenails may begin to grow in tight spiral shapes. On occasion, personnel have discovered internal organs have rearranged themselves into a spiral configuration. The psychological toll is immense. The constant nagging feeling of being watched, auditory hallucinations of faint whispering, and the tactile sensation of cold breath upon one's bare skin are commonly reported. These have been confirmed to be anomalous phenomena, not merely the products of stress. If no ritual is performed for more than a week, these effects intensify exponentially, leading to phenomena such as shifting topography, precipitation composed of blood or other organic fluids, and spontaneous generation of hostile life forms. The well has been observed to violently eject this black fluid along with fragmentary fresh human remains. During one severe lapse in rituals, dozens of vaguely humanoid figures composed of mud and river stone appeared in the area, and there was a massive, inexplicable increase in the population of aggressive carnivorous rats. We are next given excerpts from a log of rituals performed at Site-93. The staff and villagers involved believe that the well's entity is responsible not only for assigning the visions but also for dictating the specific, cruel content of each ritual. One ritual involved a single individual who was compelled to embed 17 rusted nails into the sole of each of his feet. He then had to use the resulting bloody footprints as part of a larger action to draw a massive spiral glyph on his chest. Another ritual involved 6 people drawing straws. The loser was designated as the quarry and was hunted for over 4 hours. After they captured and killed him, select cuts of meat from his body were prepared and consumed by the hunters before depositing the remains into the well. A third ritual saw an individual tasked with collecting 17 kilograms of used bandages and medical waste from the site's infirmary and depositing them within the well over a period of 17 hours. Another ritual required a female researcher to fashion a ring from a human tooth extracted from the well. At the end of the week, the ring became impossible to remove. The researcher was discovered in her quarters in an excited catatonic state, with her finger having turned black and gangrenous. One particularly disturbing ritual involved a married couple being instructed to seal themselves inside of a large burlap sack alongside several dozen live scorpions. They were deeply distressed by the vision but felt an overwhelming obligation to see it through. One of the most bizarre rituals told about involved 5 people gathering around the well, stripping naked, and drawing spiral symbols on each other's foreheads with a mixture of mud and their own blood. They recited the chant as they circled the well 17 times, during which their bodies anomalously and seamlessly fused together. The Foundation first became aware of the situation in March of 2000, after a civilian airliner crashed in the nearby Carpathian Mountains. Members of international rescue organizations attempting to reach the crash site were actively intercepted and repelled by organized groups of local civilians, including several who were armed. The Foundation took over after it became evident that all civilians carried firearms of pre-20th century make and design, possessed an intimate knowledge of the surrounding mountains, and most disturbingly, the consistency of phrasing used across multiple interrogations strongly indicated a shared, anomalous compulsion. A decision was made to quarantine the entire village. Mobile task force operatives were dispatched to contain the inhabitants, although numerous villagers were killed while resisting. Construction of what would become Site 93 began as personnel flooded the area. Any Foundation personnel who showed signs of being affected by the well were given Class C amnestics, operating under the flawed assumption that this was an info hazard. This was a catastrophic mistake. As the Foundation suppressed the villagers' rituals, the well's reality-altering effects rapidly intensified. The well's influence expanded to a critical point, affecting an area with an 80-kilometer radius, and causing catastrophic casualties and reality failures. Following these disastrous events, the site director at the time, a man named Pilecki, made a desperate choice. He ordered the construction of Site 93 to be completed at all costs. Then, he sent one final chilling message to the O5 Council. 4 months ago, 783 souls were sent to contain a perceived threat to normalcy. We were wrong, as was I. And that mistake has cost us 783 souls. The insane ramblings of the people we imprisoned were far from insane. They tried to warn us of an anomaly we didn't understand. We isolated them, drugged them, and dissected them, all under the misguided belief that they were under the sway of a cult. All the while they tried to explain to us the terrible duty they uphold. I am writing to you now to warn you of what we have learned, at the cost of everything. SCP-7776 is not an idea guiding individuals to a well. Rather, it is the reason these rituals must be performed. I implore you, for the safety of the world, do not seek to know any more than is absolutely necessary. This anomaly does not simply seek to harm anyone who comes into contact with it, but to use them as a key to unlock its cage and harm billions through us. And it is because of this truth that as of now there is no longer an us. You are to cease all monitoring of this site. We have already scrubbed our existence from your records. We have established our own remote subnet on-site. You may contact us through this channel if you absolutely must, but be aware that in order to properly contain this thing, we cannot and will not share any information beyond what you already know. We will continue our mission to secure, contain, and protect, but we can no longer do it as part of your organization. A media and travel blackout is now in effect, and anyone seen entering this valley will be treated as a threat of the highest order. You will not see the inside of this place again. Goodbye. Current understanding, pieced together from historical records, suggests the village has existed in some form since before the year 549 AD. One particularly old stone tablet found nearby bears Roman iconography, warning of a place of plague and unmaking. Due to its extreme isolation, The village has historically been a refuge for outcasts. The primary social issue it suffers from is inbreeding, as a result of new genetic material only being introduced by outsiders who stumble upon the place: lost hikers, plane crash survivors. Among the long-term residents, the well is universally reviled. It is described as the dreaded one, the beast in the earth, or the world breaker. The malicious force within is seen as an apocalyptic figure, and its containment is a sacred, shared responsibility. Of particular note are 12 ancient suits of plate armor displayed prominently in the village church. They bear the coat of arms of the Confraternity of St. George, a 15th-century order of knights. Oral tradition reveres these men as a group of saviors from the distant past. Many residents display a high tolerance for pain and psychological distress, believed to be a result of not only the long-term effects of the well, but also the generations of cultural and mental coping mechanisms required to simply exist there. There is also the occasional manifestation of low-level reality-bending abilities. Since the secession of Site-93, Foundation personnel have fully integrated with the village population, with Foundation technology and infrastructure being repurposed to support their joint mission. It is hoped that a combination of the Foundation's resources and the villagers' long-standing traditions and knowledge will prove effective. We are next given a transcript of an interview with Mr. Arash Saberi, a former photojournalist and now a resident of the village. He came to the mountains looking for a quiet place. He trekked up here with a guide, who left him to spend a few weeks photographing a pack of wolves. Then one day the wolves were just gone. No tracks, no sound, no smell. It was like a switch had been flipped and they'd been erased from existence. That was his first clue. His second was noticing a man pointing a gun at him from the tray line. They explained where he was, about the well, and what would happen to him now that he knew. Saberi panicked, of course. He tried to escape, he fought them, he screamed. He was stuck there until he had his first vision. After that he understood, it was his job now. The doctor asks about the psychological toll of the rituals. Saberi just shrugs and says that you get used to it. He goes on to say he found a new life here. He met his wife here. They are open and honest with each other because they have to be. The doctor asks how the people here receive the visions. Saberi admits they haven't figured that out yet. If the dreaded one is so powerful, why would it give them the key to its own prison? Why would they be presented with the opportunity to stop it daily? He says that some of the old-timers believed there was another entity, a benevolent counter-figure that fought the dreaded one, forced it into the well, and now sends the visions to help them keep it there. Saberi doesn't believe it, and neither do most of the younger generation. He thinks it's all just rules. A predator needs permission to enter a building. They just have to ask. He thinks they got lucky that the thing in the well needs an invitation and the rituals are them screaming no. The historical documents provided by Saberi proved to be enlightening. The box contained fragile copies of letters sent between 114.8 and 114.12 by a knight commander of the Confraternity of St. George's Knights, addressed to a superior at the Vatican, Cardinal Angelo Tebaldeschi. Your Eminence, Cardinal Tebaldeschi. Despite this most terrible winter, we have at last found the source of the heresy. In this valley, we have witnessed most terrible unholy rites performed by the local peasantry. We have rounded up the heathens for questioning. They surrendered peacefully. I regret to inform you that despite our swift action, a number of the pagans escaped into the forest. Brother Kabani is confident they will not survive the winter. Still, we will hunt them down and bring them to holy justice. For now we shall make camp in their village. Your Eminence, our hunt for the pagans has proven fruitless. While my men are great and formidable knights, the forest itself seems to conspire against us. At least we may thank the grace of God that the great bears and wolves of these mountains are not found here. The well here is clearly a great and terrible source of their power. A profane thing to behold. Daily we are plagued with foul visions, and our attempts to destroy it are met with no avail. Axe and hammer fail to leave so much as a scratch. I fear that our presence here has angered their dark god. Brothers Fiore, Santoro and Gallo simply vanished, swallowed by the ground itself as if it were not there. The visions with which it plagues us are so vile, so personal, that they cannot be spoken of to any but oneself and the Lord. On the Sabbath, Brother Orsini took up his blade and cleaved Brother Ferruccio open. Your Eminence Cardinal Tebaldeschi, the well has begun to rain blood upon us, and the very earth has begun to writhe. We are cut off now, a horde of vermin, rats the size of hounds devouring any who stray too close. The earth at times births blasphemous deformities of wood and stone. My time with them has taught me that these people were pagans not by choice, but by necessity. They worship a terrible demon that makes his home within the well. They perform their rites not to praise it, but to keep it sealed within, lest it emerge and spread its corruption across the land. The visions that hounded us are in fact the key to salvation. For they show us the way to appease the beast. All that is left is to heed the visions and perform their profane rituals. I know not what else we can do. I draw strength from the knowledge that God works in mysterious ways. 3 nights ago we performed a most horrible rite. 30 of us there were, knights and villagers together. But now only 12 of us remain. We have paid a butcher's price in blood. But the beast has been placated. Gone are the rats and blood, and the sun shines once more. It is my proposal that this village is to be stricken from all maps. Its name and knowledge is to be erased from the world so that none may seek it out. We the survivors shall fortify the town. Any who stray too close must be turned away, by force if necessary. Next we're given an extensive addendum of anomalous events. Various walkways and support beams within Site-93 have been recorded occasionally shifting their positions, often forming spiral patterns aimed at the well. A leather-bound book was recovered detailing over 1,000 unique rituals. In one of the well's ejections, a 15th-century knight's helmet was found, the right side of which remains fused on the inside of the well. A steel pull-up bar from the Site-93 gymnasium was found to be bent into a perfect spiral, and the researcher who reported it never returned. A skeletal humanoid was found crucified upon a spiral glyph made of a concrete-like material. Persons within a 10-meter radius of the object report hearing faint, pained whispering. A heavily altered skeletal structure of what appears to be a large wolf was recovered, showing it to possess numerous humanoid arms and legs. One researcher's left shoulder has been observed to be replaced over a period of 7 months with a perfect sphere of obsidian. The food supplies at Site-93 have been converted into the same black viscous liquid from the well. On one occasion, some soup that was already consumed by a researcher was anomalously regurgitated and then used in a life-saving surgery. In 2011, numerous lab rats at the facility simultaneously experienced what appeared to be severe seizures for 17 minutes. After the event, the rats were observed to have multiple extraneous, non-functional limbs. In 2007, following a series of failed rituals, the well's influence expanded catastrophically, causing various areas of the site to briefly and randomly swap locations. During this period, an agent and a civilian from the village became permanently fused together at the hip. There have been numerous reports of a skeletal canine entity stalking the perimeter of Site-93 during periods of 10 to 15 days of no ritual activity. Everyone on site during these periods reports intense feelings of being watched for extended periods of time. A site doctor reported a recurring nightmare where a humanoid entity emerged from the well and offered him a chance to leave Site-93 in exchange for performing a human sacrifice. The doctor refused the opportunity, instead volunteering for the next dangerous ritual. Finally, we come to Event 77776 Omega. This is the official designation for the catastrophic containment failure that occurred shortly after the Foundation's arrival, the one that forced Director Pilecki to shut everything down. Originally, Site-93 was planned as a small subterranean facility. This led to a 37-day period with no rituals performed, which saw an increasing instability in local reality and profound psychological distress in the villagers. This was misinterpreted as withdrawal symptoms. Their desperate pleas to be allowed to perform their rituals continued to be rejected. Due to the extensive, escalating costs of containment failure, the rituals prescribed by the visions were deemed too costly. Before contact was severed, at Pilecki's last desperate request, a 4-man survey team was dispatched to assess the severity of the situation. What follows is a transcript from the survey team's body cams. They come to a break in the tray line and see a forested valley. In the center, the ground has risen significantly and visibly pulsates like a massive heart. A perpetual, heavy downpour of red liquid, identified as human blood, falls over the area. Huge, dark structures resembling tree roots can be seen descending from a thick, unnatural cloud cover. Numerous spatial reality shifts can be seen as sections of the landscape flicker, causing different locations to briefly occupy the same space simultaneously. Trees, rocks, and even buildings are seen with materials partially fusing together. They press on, driving into the well's effects. The rainfall, confirmed to be composed of blood and other bodily fluids, forces the abandonment of their vehicles. Geometric spatial anomalies warp the path ahead, resulting in the team circling the site several times before finding a stable route. They enter the site and begin their investigation, finding that the facility had been converted into a makeshift triage center. Several bodies were found fused into the walls and ceilings, with most apparently having suffocated. 2 others seemed to be melting into the floor. While attempting to avoid confrontation, they were forced to engage a pair of researchers wielding scalpels, resulting in the deaths of both researchers and 1 agent on the team. 17 individuals on site proved to be lucid, including the site director and the assistant director. Following a debriefing and a new horrifying understanding of the necessity of performing rituals to properly contain the anomaly, it was decided that the survey team would assist the lucid survivors in a desperate attempt to perform a ritual over the well in order to avert a potential K-class scenario. As they approached the village, large numbers of carnivorous rats swarmed the vehicle. This, combined with the steep incline of the terrain, slick with a thick coating of blood on the vehicle's windscreen, made progress dangerously slow. Approximately 200 meters from the southern gate, the vehicle broke down. The team disembarked, using flame suppression units to clear a path. Progress was slow, as the flamethrowers were required to hold back the swarms of rats, which displayed extreme aggression and no regard for self-preservation. They made it through the gatehouse, suffering only superficial injuries. Within the village walls, local reality appeared more heavily affected. Buildings were observed intersecting and fusing together at random, and the ground was a morass of mud and blood. Numerous Foundation personnel were sighted within the village, all moving in a counterclockwise route, in hysterical states, chanting and clawing at each other's faces. As the group moves through the village square, a reality flicker forces them to stop. The flicker resolves, resulting in 2 trees and 6 of the individuals being fused into a single grotesque mass of wood and undifferentiated human bodies, with limbs and faces shifting to match the form of the trees. The team continued towards the well, fending off more personnel lost to reason. Multiple routes of access were impassable due to fused buildings, and flooding from the well introduced caustic black fluid into the mire. 2 of the survey team members were noted to have entered into a catatonic state. A fissure opened in the earth, releasing copious amounts of the caustic fluid, along with the deceased and nude bodies of 3 Foundation agents who appeared to have been partially cremated. Each cadaver was observed to have a spiral carved into its chest. Prior to the earth tremor subsiding, a large chunk of one of the aerial structures above broke off, crashing into the village square adjacent to the well. The impact caused the bodies emerging from the well to be thrown against the wall opposite the team. Another agent's camera shows a mass of mud, stone, and corpses approaching, gradually taking on a bipedal humanoid shape approximately 4 meters tall. A Foundation doctor can be heard being dragged into a building, shortly followed by muffled screams. Inside, another agent directs small arms fire at a swarm of rats crawling in a spiral pattern in the corner of the room. The site's assistant director can be briefly seen beneath the swarm, his left arm and thigh visibly having been consumed. Upon reaching the top of the hill, the area was shaken by another powerful reality shift. Relative gravity along the slope of the hill reversed, causing the mud and blood to flow rapidly uphill, making ascent actively hostile. A sinkhole created a void behind the group, which opened into what appeared to be empty space. One camera belonging to a Foundation member being carried is obscured by blood. He is knocked from the grasp of his carrier by wreckage and dragged down, his camera feed cutting to static as he is pulled inside the sinkhole. A static camera on a shed shows the same agent emerging from the cloud cover at speed, visibly on fire, falling for 27 seconds. Once safe inside the shed, the group proceeded to prepare the ritual components near the well. A number of the restrained Foundation personnel were arranged in a circle. A complex sigil was drawn in blood on the floor of the shed. The ritual required sacrifice. The Lucid Site-93 staff dragged the prisoners towards the well, having been stripped of their clothing. The prisoners have had their mouths crudely surgically altered to prevent them from screaming. The staff proceed to place each prisoner against the base of the well, forcing their bodies into a complex embrace. The well overflows as the sludge spills forth over the captives, covering them, hardening over them. The skin and flesh of the captives is seen sloughing off in sheets, taking on a consistency similar to melted wax, spreading over the well's outer surface. The large entity within the well flails all the more intensely. The camera feed cuts to static before resuming to show the well entirely coated in a web-like organic material composed of the melted remains of the captives. Green fluid can be seen pulsing through small channels in this web, giving off a sickly vapor. The buildings surrounding the well now appear to be made of the same organic material. The chanting continues, as the participants form a circle surrounding the well, each person being lifted into the air. The web-like strands from the melted captives are seen connected to the backs of the participants, with strips of their flayed skin stretching out behind them. A shard of bone impales the camera. A follow-up set of survey teams, along with an armed escort, was dispatched 72 hours later. These later teams discovered the village to be in a far less hostile state than the initial team had encountered. Unknown processes had reverted most of the damage, with various structures in different states of repair. The bodies of 7 deceased Foundation personnel were found. Causes of death included exsanguination, exposure, self-inflicted injuries, and suffocation. Subsequent autopsies discovered geometric patterns carved into teeth and bones. 3 others showed signs consistent with deep-sea decompression. Of those found within the village, only Site Director Pilecki was found alive, inside a cafeteria freezer unit half submerged into the ground. Despite severe facial wounds and bruising trauma, he was able to give a full account of the incident. It's a horrifying story, but it seems like they've got a handle on it for now. We know that there is something cognitohazardous going on, compelling people to believe there's something bad in the well and enact crazy rituals to keep it contained. We also know that there is definitely something very anomalous coming from the well itself. This leaves us with a lot of questions about what exactly is in the well and why it provides the means to keep it at bay. The Foundation, in its initial arrogance, tried to wrap this all up like they usually do, but they also realized how dangerous this anomaly truly is. The more people that are aware of the thing in the well, the more dangerous and costly the rituals become. Which begs the question of what would happen if there was only a very small team there, or even a single individual. We die in the dark so that you may live in the light. I'm sure the Foundation isn't entirely happy with an entire site and its personnel operating off the books, a black site out there that they can't check on at all. But the alternative is far, far worse. If 200 people are willing to live in a perpetual state of dread, performing grotesque and nightmarish rituals in order to protect the world, that's a sacrifice the Foundation is more than willing to make.